So, SpongeBob games can be a little weird. And I don't mean official ones, but don't get me wrong, those can be weird too. However, there are an awful lot of unofficial Flash games that are also highly unusual. Don't believe me? Just look at the title of this one, SpongeBob and Krabs Burger's Secret. But if you think that's weird, check out the description. Patrick came to visit Baba and found him in the upset, the poor man sitting in the corner and shed tears. It turns out that the villain Plankton entered the cafe Krusty Krabs and stole the secret recipe Krabs Burgera. The owner blamed SpongeBob in the sale of securities and fired from their jobs. Friends decided to go after searching for the recipe, and you helped them to bypass the obstacles on the way and accomplish the mission successfully. Wow, SpongeBob was fired because Plankton stole the formula? If I were him, I'd just go, not my problem anymore. Good luck with that, Eugene. But if that little summary wasn't enough, we have cutscenes. Plankton has stolen a Krabs Burger. He wants it secret. And okay, this one almost feels like a parody of other weird SpongeBob Flash games, even poking fun at the fact that these games never use the term Krabby Patty. To the burger car. Okay, yeah, they're doing this on purpose. But to be honest, I can't really say that for certain. It seems the game came from freegamescasual.com, which is filled with other weird games like this. But anyway, we ride along in the burger car and avoid obstacles until the timer runs out. Nothing too remarkable happens in the first stage, but when you reach the chum bucket, you find that Plankton's fled to a secret base. And the game consistently calls him the Plankton, which I guess makes sense. He is the Plankton character in the show. And things get a little harder, but it isn't until the last stage that you chase him. You have to grab bottles and use a turbo boost to keep up with his car. This is where avoiding the obstacles gets a lot harder. It's an interesting change of pace though. But other than that, this is a very simple game. Not much to it aside from its unusual way of wording everything. And again, it feels like it's intentionally weird, so that's no fun. We want to see games that are effortlessly unusual. So, how about Soaring SpongeBob? From our favorite website, cc.net, a big provider of these incredible classics. SpongeBob is riding on a very goofy-looking dragon while holding a ray gun. Larry's also showing off his moves right here. So basically, you ride on the dragon and shoot at very normal-looking fish guys who are flying on heart balloons. What did they ever do to deserve this? And wait, here comes Mr. Krabs. Let's get revenge on him for firing us in the last game, as if getting his formula stolen wasn't enough. And again, aside from the absurdity, there isn't much to it. So if we want a much more complicated one, we also have SpongeBob Super Stacker. Oh, chill out there, SpongeBob. That was a little too forward. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. Wow. Thank you for that highly inspirational quote. Really what we all needed to hear right now. But the instructions are even more compelling. SpongeBob likes to catch jellyfish, but accidentally entered the magic physical world. Don't you just hate it when that happens? I don't even know how those two topics are correlated. Oh, I sure love salami sandwiches, but I somehow ended up in the dimension of endless torment. But if you can believe this, it gets even more confusing. You need to help them stack together. What? What does anything about this scenario have to do with that? Unusual story aside, the game kinda reminds me of SpongeBob Excludes Squidward, just due to being a game where you sort different shapes in the image of SpongeBob. But in this, you have to stack all the shapes without letting them fall off the platforms. You can even move on to the next stage if they do fall. You just need to keep them upright until the timer finishes checking them. But get this. As stages go on, you just use the outright characters rather than just shapes of them, and sometimes your shapes bounce. Everything gets a little harder when you're met with a red line you can't click on, and some stages get a little freaky with their twists too. Takes a bit of brain work to figure out. Still, this game is kinda fun. I actually enjoy it. When I'm not being frustrated with it, that is. Not bad, but seriously, what was up with that storyline? Another interesting puzzle game we can check out is SpongeBob Eat Fruit. Remember the video when we looked at SpongeBob Ball? That brilliant sport that you needed to chop off your arms and legs for? Well, I hope you didn't get them back, because we can't have those around when we eat fruit. An apple is flying through a maze, so we have to hit the spacebar to change the direction of these bats. That's what the game calls them, at least. We have to guide the apple to the limbless SpongeBob so he can eat it. You can also grab stars along the way. Some levels have twists, too, such as this mystery box. I thought there would be something inside, but no, the question mark is just a decoration. I also love how realistic the blue buttons are. This is kinda amusing, but not too much to see. I miss having limbs though, my nose itches. So let's move on to SpongeBob Happy Journey. Doesn't that sound lovely? But this is a real sight to behold. Feathers all over the walls, collectible sweets, toy soldiers everywhere. Sounds SpongeBob enough to me. You control SpongeBob and Patrick as you grab a key and make your way to a door. It's very strange. Oh, knives. Those are fun. We totally won't see a game about those later in the video. Another thing that's weird about this game is the background music. I can't really describe just how bizarre it is to hear it along with all of this, so just have a listen for yourself. And once we reach the stages with the spikes, the game gets a lot harder. Still, not too bad. It's interesting, I'll give it that. So, let's hope SpongeBob Underwater ATV can be equally interesting. It's cool that we can choose our own car. Let's see how this is. Well, that sucked. Okay then, next game. Actually, how about we look at one of my favorite SpongeBob games of all time? Yeah, this is one I have a lot of nostalgia for. I've actually reviewed it before too. It was my most viewed video at the time it was uploaded, which makes it historically significant, so I have no issues with going over it again. It's time to look at SpongeBob Typing. Wait, this isn't the SpongeBob Typing I remember. We're just hitting keyboard keys as characters holding them fall down. Darn, I was seriously looking forward to hearing that weird Mr. Krabs voice again.
This cash register is broken and I can't get me money out.
This is really easy even for an inexperienced typist, so let's move on. We won't be winning any peanut butter and jellyfish jelly sandwiches in this. But now I'm feeling nostalgic, so let's look at another game that reminds me of something from my childhood. Here's Underwater Restaurant, a very strange attempt at emulating Diner Dash. Why is Bubble Bass looking at me like that? It works like most restaurant simulators. You drag customers to tables, take their orders, bring them food, take their money, and try to make sure everyone is pleased. Unfortunately, the game is a little unresponsive. I often have to click something multiple times for SpongeBob to respond. Because of this, I end up aggravating more customers than I should be. Also, Patrick ordering wine? That isn't something I ever expected to see. I don't think drunk Patrick is something any of us want to experience. But yeah, an interesting idea, but I struggled with it. I recommend sticking with the proper SpongeBob Diner Dash. It'll give you more headaches than the recommended daily amount for a human, but it's a good time. But you know what else causes headaches, along with a lot of other bodily pain? Going to war. Welcome to SpongeBob War. This title screen really reflects the horrific nature of fighting in a war. Look how traumatized they are. You then choose to play with either one player or two, then we run through an overhead maze and shoot at an army of Squidwards. I like running at the top of the screen because look at what happens to SpongeBob's sprite. That is one wide sponge. Patrick's isn't nearly as interesting though. You can also destroy the walls, but it's recommended that you use them for coverage. They're shielding your house and you can't have that get destroyed. The game's alright though. Sorta reminds me of Bomberman in a way. Either that or Boo or Boom. That was a good one too. So let's move on to a shockingly involved Flash game. A highly detailed one, but also a highly difficult one. This is SpongeBob World Cup. In case you can't tell from the title, it's a sports game. A volleyball one to be specific. I gotta say, SpongeBob looks a little weird though. Not sure why they had to build him like that. But we have 32 countries we can choose from, each with different levels of speed and jump. Predictably, Brazil is the best one, with full meters for both. The outfits have a weird flicker to them as well, but you won't be focusing on that because this game is strikingly hard. If you aren't giving it every shred of your focus, you'll miss the ball and lose. The enemy team is merciless as soon as you start the first stage. It doesn't really matter what team you select. Even when I think I'm doing good, the other team speeds ahead of me to the point where I can't realistically catch up. A good game in essence, but not really balanced very well. I also really wish they used different models for the SpongeBobs. I really miss SpongeBob Ball. I was so much better at that. Maybe I wasn't. Let's stay away from sports games. How about SpongeBob's Revenge? Given this title, would you ever expect it to involve SpongeBob driving a tractor around and shooting at soldiers and tanks? Well, that was a sound. I'm not sure why these games are so obsessed with apples either. At least Krabby Patties would have made more sense. They'd have to call them something else though. Maybe apple burgers? This game is okay, but I really hate these obstacles that come out of platforms. It's really hard to prepare for where they're going to land. You have to be very specific. And who's this guy? He doesn't even have a tank. He's just a businessman who walked out into a war zone and started throwing bombs at everyone. Also, what does any of this have to do with revenge? Let's read the description and find out. The real war with unequal forces broke out between SpongeBob and army soldiers. They are not divided the territory among themselves and are now ready to defend it to the end. In this game, you can fight with SpongeBob, who will move to the tractor equipped with a minigun. Collect along the way apples to eat. Sounds like it's about a territorial dispute. Not sure how that relates to revenge though. Weird title. Perfectly normal game though, absolutely nothing unusual about this. So let's see if we can find a weirder one. Just after we sit through this annoyingly long intro, then it's all aboard the SpongeBob school bus. I guess SpongeBob's a bus driver now. A very bad one at that. You speed through the town, flying around over hills as you try to bring kids to their houses. Sometimes you're going so fast you have to back up when you miss one. I remember having to drive across these on your trip to school. Oh, we fell in a hole. Sorry kids, doesn't look like you'll ever be getting home. Yeah, I don't think we have a future as a bus driver. Better find a new career. How about we get a job as a prison warden? In prison, Bikini Bottom cases of runaways and the administration has decided to increase security. SpongeBob volunteered to help detain fugitives and had donned uniform cap. But his experience is not enough, so you need to help him. Your hand in yellow glove as soon as you see skedaddle recidivist. Grab him by the scruff of the neck and put in a cage, which is at the bottom of the machine. Proceed with the mouse, and do not miss the thieves. Surprised the cage isn't at the bottom of the machine. Not sure why that's such a common misspelling in instructions like these. So anyway, the skedaddle recidivists are running loose in Bikini Bottom Alcatraz, so we have to pick them up and drag them to the cage truck down here. Try to ignore SpongeBob's blinking transparent eyes too. And if this sounds easy enough, it really isn't. It's very rare that your hand will actually grip one of the criminals, even if you click directly on them. But sometimes the game will let you click on oil or a banana peel, which will make the criminals comedically slip. I should also mention that the criminals transform into plankton once you put them in the cage. Maybe they're all in big robot suit disguises or something. I don't know. This whole thing is interesting, but a lot harder to play than it should be. So let's look at one more semi-normal game before we crank up the weirdness to the max. Thankfully, we've played almost all of the weird doctor and dentist games by now, but I've found a selection of games that manage to be weird in their own rights. For now, let's look at SpongeBob Survival. I don't like the look of his eyes here. Let's give this game a try though. Excuse me, but what did we just witness? We're running through a field of elephants to reach the other side, and when you die, you turn into a mangled mess of blood. And every level gives you a different conflict to overcome, such as cannons that shoot at you, though the creativity quickly dies when the game turns into your average Frogger clone. A very challenging one at that. The gators barely even pose a threat because I can barely jump on the barrels to reach them in the first place. My amusement's faded. Let's move on from this. So, for these last 3 games, I'd like to look at a few that are especially unusual, for one reason or another, such as washing pants. Doesn't that sound exciting? Well, it isn't. It's one of those content farm games with absolutely no gameplay beyond clicking and dragging as the on-screen instructions tell you to. Though this one has a layer of conflict you wouldn't find in your average Baby Hazel game. You start by separating white clothes from colored ones, but you have to deduce that light blue also constitutes as white. And sometimes, only a little bit of white is all you need to classify something as white. Wow, a challenge in a content farm game? How unheard of. Hey, there's some red in the white bin. Prawn must have snuck that in. So despicable. Then we fill the washing machine and drag the clothes into it. I love the little bubble that says wow, as if you just did something magnificent. And after all this, you hang the clothes on their silhouette and the game says thank you. As if I did someone a great service by playing this. Clearly that person wasn't myself. But I mean, at least some good came from this entirely meaningless use of time. You even get applauded for it. So that sucked. How about we play SpongeBob Eat Cookies instead? That ought to be much more enjoyable. But, something isn't right here. Is this supposed to be SpongeBob? I don't think that's him. That's Eggo Waffle Man. But SpongeBob related or not, you have to click on a shape to eat it before a timer runs out. It's kind of fun, actually. Very strange, though. And actually, the character in this is called Waffle Boy. He's from a few old Flash games developed by Smashing Ideas for Postopia, an old website for cereal games. I wouldn't be surprised if this game was just swiped from that website and labeled as a SpongeBob one. Waffle Boy had some interesting games, too. Maybe we'll check them out in a future video. But for now, we have one last game to look at. It's one of the weirdest ones yet, so ready yourselves for what we're about to witness. This is Terrific SpongeBob Darts. Seems to be made by the same people who made SpongeBob Loves Hamburger. And this game seems to be a serious matter because you can enter a name to save your score to a player page. They really want to know how good you did in Terrific SpongeBob Darts. What's so terrific about it anyway? Let's find out. First of all, I should mention we aren't actually using darts. We're throwing knives. Targets can appear around SpongeBob, so we have to try and hit them without hitting him. Though that face is very affronting. It's as if he's asking me to hit him instead. Forget the targets, let's make this interesting. And aside from knives, you can also use swords and scythes. I guess we used one to chop off half of Patrick's head here. And not only do you have to hit the targets, but you have to rack up enough points before you run out of blades. If you lose, you get to hear this voice.
Game over!
So yeah, very unusual. Not terrific at all. I'm not sure why I even subjected myself to this one in the first place. You know what, I think I'm gonna have to be done for the day. I've overloaded my brain with enough weirdness to last a few lifetimes. So I hope you enjoyed this unusual selection of SpongeBob SquarePants games. My sense of logic has been completely obliterated. There are still an awful lot of these, but we've covered a great deal of them, and I need to let my brain collect itself for a little bit. I'm gonna go read Plato's Republic or something. So I guess I'll see you all next time. Don't ride in any school buses driven by SpongeBob. That's my piece of advice for the day. So anyway, for the time being, be sure to subscribe, follow me on the accounts in the description below, and tune in to our next installment. Thank you for joining me. I will see you in the next memory.